It was the 270th year since the battle began. Somewhere far in the middle of the Ural Mountains, the camp of the Dreamcatchers was located, and almost the entire unit gathered around the campfire in anticipation. They had been waiting for the third day in a row. Not far from them, sitting in a tree, the troop was guarded by a guardian, a Seppuku named Luna. Next to her was her guardian, a rainbow spirit. Seppuku was admiring the beautiful and quiet dawn when she suddenly heard the distant sound of a branch crunching, as if someone was approaching them from the western side of the forest. The moon and the rainbow spirit abruptly took off, hurrying to warn the rest of the group of the possible danger. The moon spread her wings wide and landed in front of the group resting by the fire. From her wary look, they immediately realized that they must have had visitors. Seppuku prepared her bow and arrows and warned the others that the troop was approaching from the west, would be there in a couple of minutes, and everyone should get ready. The confrontation between the Dreamcatchers and the King's Will was about to begin. The Dream Squad began preparing for the battle. The first step was to surround the camp with a dome to slow down the enemy's advance. Therefore, it was decided to use the Dark Bastion skill, which instantly created a reliable, translucent dome that stretched tens of meters upwards. The King's Will squad watched the Dreamcatchers prepare, and the dome formed before their eyes. But they were confident in their abilities, so without hesitation they gave the command to destroy it. A member of the squad used the Divine Beam skill. A blinding pillar of light was formed right from his hand. The divine ray shattered the dome like an eggshell. As soon as the dome was destroyed, the king's army went on the offensive, and the command was given to crush the enemy. The first of the squad to rush into battle were the Eagle Phanto and his guardian Spirit of Sound. They were followed by Chucky the Foot and Mouth Disease and his guardian Spirit of Death. Pandemic the Cobra and her guardian, the Poisonous Spirit, were the next to attack. Next came the Fennec Lyrica and her guardian Living Spirit. They were followed by the Shark Knockout and his guardian Spirit of the Abyss, and the Lion King and his guardian Spirit of Lightning. The last of the king's troop were the Panda Vagabond and his guardian Spirit of Sand. The members of the Dreamcatchers were more than ready to fight back. They intended to stop their attack and discuss possible defenses. Everest the Bear and his guardian Magma Spirit began preparing to use the Mountain Frontier skill. Chucky the Foot and Mouth Disease was the first to reach the Dream Squad, but he did not have time to attack them, because a tall mountain grew up in front of him, on top of which the entire Dream Squad stood and looked at the Foot and Mouth Disease mockingly. The use of the Mountain Boundary skill was quite successful. The Chinchilla May Rain and its guardian, the Hurricane Spirit, were smiling and looking forward to the battle, and the tension was growing. The Dream Squad, led by the Hun-Eating Berserker and his guardian, the Spirit of Hellfire, did not hesitate to engage in battle. Seppuku Moon used her bow and arrows, and shot 3 arrows in the direction of the Phantom Eagle. He maneuvered in time and was able to avoid 2 of the arrows, but where did the third one go? And the third arrow flew at an incredible speed right into the Cobra Pandemic. She was saved from death by the Panda Vagabond, who was able to catch the arrow with his bare hands a few meters away from the Cobra. With one confident movement, he broke the deadly arrow in half. Nothing could pass unnoticed by his keen eye. In response to the attempt to kill her, Pandemonium the Cobra began preparing her Poison Cloud skill. An angry, toothy cobra's head flew out of a long stick. This attack was taken over by the Chinchilla May Rain, who adored snakes, but only dead ones. The chinchilla used his air blades against the cobra. Fox, a member of the Dream Squad, asked Bambi the sheep and his guardian nature spirit for help. They immediately began preparing the Tree of Life skill. Right before our eyes, a huge tree with a green crystal in the middle of its trunk grew from a small sprout. The preparation of the skill was complete. Meanwhile, the shark, Vibe Velo, prepared and successfully used the Tsunami skill. He sent a giant wave of water in the direction of the newly created Tree of Life, but it managed to survive, the water did not reach it. Meanwhile, each of the warring units has found a worthy opponent. The first pair, the Lion King against the Hun-Eating Berserker. Both were wearing shiny steel armor and wielding sharp swords. Their swords met with a grinding sound and a powerful blow. Lightning flashed in the air. The lion and the honeyeater were encouraging each other to attack more actively. Their strengths were almost equal. The lion was confident in the speed and strength of his attack, so he attacked confidently and without hesitation. But the berserker skillfully used the Shadow Avenger skill, and a portal formed under him. The body of the honeyeater became more like a silhouette from the shadows, so when the lion struck with his sword, the weapon passed through the air without hitting the enemy. Suddenly, a portal appeared on the other side, from which a Rio berserker jumped out and made a surprise attack. Everything happened in a matter of seconds. The lion did not have time to react. The sword cut off both his arms. The Lion King was kneeling in a pool of his own blood, his severed arms lying next to him. A fellow lion immediately came to the lion's aid, using her divine healing skills. The second pair of opponents, Nova the fox and Vibivelo the shark. Standing on a hill, the fox used the fire stream skill against the shark. The flames poured down on the shark like a river, but Vibivelo managed to stop the fire with his water wall skill. The third pair, Everest the bear versus Tramp the panda. The bear started the attack by preparing the lava cannonball skill. With a hammer strike, he launched a hot core at the panda, but the vagabond confidently stopped the core with his desert embrace skill. A giant hand formed from a pile of sand and deflected the ball. The fourth pair, the sissy moon and the phantom eagle. At first, the eagle tried to shoot the moon with a bow, but it was hard to hit a moving target, so he decided to defeat it in close combat. The phantom flew up to the tit, and they clashed with sharp blades. The seppuku managed to fly away from the opponent a few meters and tried to shoot an arrow at him. The outcome of this battle was to be decided by the last attack. The chinchilla May Rain, in tandem with the honey-eating berserker, was preparing to launch a combined attack. May Rain used the Furious Flurry skill to increase the strength of the berserker's attack, giving it more speed. Using the skill of divine healing of the phoenix, Lyrica was able to heal the lion. His arms were back in place. They regenerated quickly. The healed king was full of thirst for revenge. He roared with rage and rushed into battle. The Lion King was serious about revenge, and when he regained his strength, he immediately began to prepare his lightning strike skill. The Dreamcatcher squad noticed this, and now they had to be on their guard. They prepared the Shield of Darkness skill to avoid the attack of the angry Lion King. To prevent them from escaping, the lion ordered Pandemonium the cobra to attack the enemy. She was happy to prepare her poisonous snake attack skill, so that her little friends could finally get some work done. A bunch of poisonous snakes crawled to Berserker's feet. In addition to this, the cobra used the strengthened skill and released a deadly poison that could enhance the poisonous snake attack skill. The Berserker tried not to let the snakes bite him, but there were too many of them, attacking from all sides. The Berserker fought back with all his might, but the snakes won. The lion was able to set the tree of life on fire with the wrath of heaven, and lightning struck it from the top to the roots. Bambi the sheep panicked, but the broomstick calmed her down and promised to put the tree out immediately. The tree of life was burning brightly, but the fox told the chinchilla not to rush to put it out. The Lion King did not know that he had given them a generous gift, because the fox's unique skill, the rose thorns, enhanced the next skill, the fire dragon. The rose, covered in blood, burst into flames in the fox's hands. In the flames that engulfed the tree of life, the silhouette of a dragon began to be seen, and later it became clearer, and the fire dragon fully spread its giant wings. The May Rain decided to put on a little show for the king's will troop, and he began to prepare the skill of Heavenly Messenger. Many swallows flew around the chinchilla. The swallows, the messengers of heaven, greatly enhanced the fire dragon's skills, and he became bigger and faster. The fox gave the dragon an order to burn his enemies to ashes and leave no one alive. The cobra warned her squad that a dragon was coming. The shark was the first to react to the threat and began preparing the abyssal horror skill. A wave of water appeared again, but now the silhouette of a large shark was clearly visible. The horror of the abyss is not enough to stop the dragon, so the panda tramp decided to help the knockout and offered to build a defense. He began to prepare the sandcastle skill. Lifting his stick up, the panda created a wall of sand, which gradually turned into a castle and blocked the shark in the sand trap. The fox sent the dragon in the direction of the enemies, and Vibivelo sent the shark against the dragon. Each of them was sure of their victory. The monsters came together in a fierce confrontation, two elements fire against water. The battle did not last long. The dragon won and flew on to destroy everything in its path. Next he intended to attack the sand castle that the tramp had built to protect himself. From a height, at full speed, he crashed into the walls of the castle. The fragments flew in different directions, but he still failed to completely destroy the castle, he only damaged it. The panda's defense proved to be reliable. Meanwhile, in the sky, a duel was going on between the moon and the phantom eagle. Moon wanted to end the fight as soon as possible to help the others. The eagle managed to prepare a trap, a banshee cry, and the owl flew right into it. The banshee's scream injured the sepulchre, and she fell to the ground. A few seconds before the collision, she tried to use her luck skill, but failed. The moon shattered, and the luck skill was transferred to the previously injured berserker, who was still unconscious. The berserker regained consciousness but was confused. The fox saw that he was awake and immediately asked him to join the battle. The moon was defeated, so now they are in the minority. The berserker heard the news and immediately got ready to fight. Foot and mouth disease Chucky could not stand idle. He was preparing his dark butcher skill and had already chosen a victim to attack, the May Rain chinchilla. He sneaked up behind him and killed the enemy with one precise movement of his blades. After neutralizing the chinchilla, Foot and Mouth Disease activated the unique skill Serial Killer, and he treated his blade with poison. When the next skill, Herald of Death, was activated, the bone hand came out of the ground and he gave them his second blade. Chucky asked the panda tramp to help him hold off the next enemy. Tramp used the skill of Loose Sand, which instantly surrounded the Everest bear and blocked it. Foot and Mouth Disease thought that he was done with Everest and wanted to look for a new victim, but the bear did not give up easily. Enveloped in loose sands, he roared and began to prepare his provocation skill. Chucky picked up the scythe he had created from human bones, with one of his blades in place of the blade. He ran at full speed toward the bear to finish it off while it was still trapped in the sand. Everest had just finished preparing his provocation skill. Blocked by the sand, he stood waiting for the attacker with his shield and hammer at the ready. With one clear and quick swing of the bone scythe, the Foot and Mouth Disease cut off the bear's head. Everest tried to deflect the blow with his shield, but the scythe was faster, and before he could even realize the moment of his own death, his head had already been separated from his body. Foot and Mouth Disease Chucky was even upset that the bear died so quickly. He wanted a full battle with a strong opponent. He needed new victims to have fun with. Foot and Mouth Disease set his sights on the rest of the Dreamcatcher squad, bloodlust glowing in his eyes. The fox, which was also trapped in the sand, was unable to fully engage the lizard. It could only defend itself, so it began to prepare the fire shield skill. The lizard, in turn, used a series of slashing attacks that instantly cut through not only the fire barrier but also the fox's body. Chucky won again. Bambi the sheep was next in line, and she didn't even try to defend herself, because she saw that it didn't do any good for her comrades. They died anyway. Foot and Mouth Disease grabbed Bambi by the throat and neutralized her with his bare hands. There was no one else left in the Dream Squad but the Honeybee Berserker, and he had no intention of giving up. The Honeyeater prepared a mountain-cutting skill and confidently went on the offensive. Panda Rambler, who was responsible for creating the sand castle and quicksand that killed most of the Dream Squad, was the first victim of Berserker. He cut the panda in half with his sword. The next to die from the Berserker's sword was the Fennec Lyrica. Although she managed to use the Holy Impregnable Territory skill to form a protective dome around her, the Berserker's powerful blow managed to destroy it. The dome shattered into pieces along with Lyrica. When the Lion King saw that Lyric was dead, he was seized with incredible rage, and lightning began to spread through his body. He started preparing the quick lightning skill and rushed at fantastic speed towards Berserker. As he approached him, the lion used the fist of the thunder god's skill and struck first. The Berserker withstood the lion's attack and prepared a slashing blow in response, but the lion was able to dodge and delivered another powerful blow, a lightning-fast uppercut. The honey creeper did not expect such strength from the lion, and he was unable to make a successful attack and strike. He spat blood, tried to attack again, and the lion dodged again. After collecting his thoughts, the Berserker decided to change his strategy and defiantly let go of his sword. He decided to try a regular fist fight, and the Lion King gladly accepted the challenge. The opponents got ready and took a fighting stance. They agreed to fight honestly, without tricks and cunning techniques. The fight began. Their blows were fast and accurate. The opponents fought on equal terms, both were injured and exhausted, but neither wanted to give in to the other. Rhythmic, strong blows fell one after another, but they held on with their last strength. The Berserker was sure that a few more well-aimed blows would surely knock the lion down. But suddenly the lion was surrounded by lightning, and something strange began to happen. During the battle, he was able to reach a new level, the first earthly step, the divine level. His wounds healed, his skills completely rebooted, and he was even able to choose a new type of weapon. The Lion King chose a weapon with lightning elements and rushed back into battle with renewed vigor. Berserker felt that this would not end well for him, as the new level had come at a very bad time, just when the lion was almost defeated, and now Berserker had almost no chance. The lion picked up speed and rushed at the Berserker, powered by lightning, intent on finishing him off quickly. The lion used the uppercut skill of the god of thunder and lightning to strike, and to finally finish off the enemy, he used the devastating double punch skill. The Berserker didn't even resist. The obvious advantage was on the side of the king. The Honey-Eater was lying on the ground covered in a pile of dust. He was actually defeated, but the lion needed to strike a decisive blow, so he began to prepare the skill of punishing the god of thunder. The king struck for the last time, and even the ground broke under the Berserker's body from the powerful blow. But this was not enough. The lion had not forgotten that it was the Berserker who had cut off his hands at the beginning of the fight, so he decided to get even. He picked up his almost lifeless body from the ground and tore off both hands with his bare hands. Now the battle could be considered completely over. The Lion King wanted to start preparing the fist of the lightning god's skill, when suddenly a bright beam of light appeared in the middle of the field. A mysterious object appeared from it, which gradually turned into a portal. The shadow movement skill was used, and suddenly a shadow flashed in front of the lion. His friend, a black panther, came to the aid of the dying Berserker. He wanted to put him out of his misery. Looking into his friend's eyes for the last time, he pulled out a knife and stabbed Berserker right in the chest. Now it was over. He was no longer in pain. Kneeling beside the dead Berserker, the panther promised that they would meet again soon. The body of the Honey-Eater was covered by the spirit of Hellfire, its guardian, and it was returning its master to the sanctuary. The panther also removed Dark's star cloak from the Berserker, which was damaged in the battle, and ordered it to be restored. After the cloak was restored, it turned into a girl, and the panther prepared the dark portal skill to the vault, and carefully moved the girl into the portal. Now it's time to deal with the King's Will squad. The panther wanted to destroy everyone. He started activating the dominance zone of the Kingdom of Darkness. The members of the King's Will squad were enveloped in darkness like thick black smoke. They lost all their senses, could not hear or see anything. By the smell of blood, the panther found its first victim, the foot-and-mouth disease Chucky. The panther used the multiple space-cutting skill, and the foot-and-mouth disease was chopped into small pieces in a few seconds. Pandemia the cobra was the next to die. She was out of luck. The panther hated poisonous creatures. After using the double horizontal strike skill, the cobra was left without a head and even without its poisonous fangs. The shark, Vibivelo, saw the death of his comrades, so he tried to defend himself in advance, prepared the water fortress skill, which surrounded him with water from all sides. The panther just laughed at him. nothing could protect the shark from the enemy's fury, so he began preparing the pincers of darkness skill. Darkness began to descend on the protective dome of water, gradually enveloping it until it completely covered it. The bouncer was doomed, his air supply was blocked, he was suffocating and had no way to get out. The panther counted the number of members of the king's squad, and there were only 2 of them left. The phantom eagle was the first to fall into his hands, and he quickly dealt with it using the spider's steel thread skill. The eagle was squeezed so hard by these threads that it looked like a mummy. The panther kept the lion as an appetizer. But the lion didn't want to give up so easily. First he had to break through the dome of darkness that surrounded them and deprived them of all their senses. The lion began to prepare the skill of the fierce roar of the god of thunder. The lightning created by the lion still managed to damage the dome of darkness, and cracks appeared on its surface. Finally, the rays of light entered the dome, and with them the lion's senses returned. Now he had every chance to defeat the panther. The Lion King immediately began to prepare for the attack. He called for help from the royal bloodline, which would allow him to test a new kind of weapon. The lion gave the panther 3 reasons why he would lose today. First, the lion had a higher level, he was the first to reach the divine level. Secondly, the awakened royal blood would give him high characteristics, and lastly, the divine level weapon would simply erase the panther into dust. Panther, in turn, also gave 3 reasons why the lion is losing today. First, not only the lion has royal blood. Secondly, it is unlikely that the new weapons will give a sufficient advantage, and most importantly, everyone has their own hell, and the lion has no idea how unbearable training can be and what you need to go through to become stronger. The panther intended to show the lion what a huge gap there was between their strengths, and he promised to defeat him with 1 punch. The opponents confidently ran to meet each other. The panther prepared to strike with the unstoppable punch of the King of Darkness, and the lion with the crushing blow of the God of Thunder. The 2 mighty warriors started the final fight. It was an incredible force, and the intensity of their attacks created a storm in which lightning strikes and thick streams of darkness mixed. From the epicenter of the battle came the roar and groan of the enemies. But the panther fulfilled his promise, perhaps not at the first strike, but he still overcame the lion. 5 hours had passed since the battle between the 2 squads. Berserker, the honeybee, woke up and saw his keeper, who immediately rushed to hug him, incredibly happy that his master had finally woken up. The berserker was annoyed and upset that he was the last one to be revived again. The Dreamcatcher squad had long since been revived and was resting in the clearing waiting for the honeybee to awaken. All the members of the squad greeted the berserker and finally began to prepare for the next journey. The next stop according to the plan was the dungeons of the unclean. The whole squad gathered together to watch the sun rise and cheerfully discussed whose turn it was to cook. No one knows how it all started or how it will end. We can only watch from the sidelines, and only a select few will take part in this game. There is a lot of unknown in the world and we have to explore it. It was a sunny morning in the city, everyone was in a hurry to go about their business, and no one noticed life itself, and the difficulties it has to overcome. Moreover, no one can even imagine where it will all lead. 2 mysterious magical creatures were finally choosing their opponents for the battle. They had been waiting for this amusing spectacle for a very long time, so they eagerly cast their lots. The dice of fate were rolled, and the opponents for this battle were determined. And so they were, a true god named the Bright One, who was a woman in steel armor, and a true god named the Fear Eater, a dragon-like creature. A young man was riding the subway and reading a new issue of his favorite manga on his phone. He couldn't look away from the screen, the manga storyline captivated him incredibly. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain, and it seemed to him that he was dying. He lost consciousness and fell to the floor. People in the subway started to fuss and began to call an ambulance. At first he heard the sound of water drops, then gradually began to open his eyes and saw strange silhouettes that resembled people. He could not understand where he was. The guy more or less came to his senses. He had a terrible headache, and he could not understand what had happened. In front of him stood a strange humanoid female being. It greeted him, called him the Chosen One, and told him that it was his guide in the battle of the gods. The creature said that he could get an answer to any question he had, and while he was thinking, she began to explain what was coming next. The boy will have to choose one of the elements that will help in the battle of the gods. Much would depend on this choice. There were 4 elements: fire, water, air, and earth. Fire is ruthless and harsh, and if you want to destroy an enemy, there is nothing more effective. Water is turbulent and shapeless, and many people underestimate it and lose their lives because of it. The air is light and untamed, and it's amazing how this immense element can become uncontrollable and demolish everything in its path. The earth is solid and calm. We are used to it being under our feet and not posing a threat, but in vain. Based on the description, the guy decided to choose fire. It seemed to him the strongest. A second before he was about to choose fire, he stopped. Perhaps he was in a hurry and needed to think more? This time he decided to really concentrate and think carefully about his choice. The ocean of the soul is a sphere where all the power of a living being is gathered. The boy's thought process caused amazing changes. A ray of consciousness broke into the ocean of the soul. The Chosen One felt warmth throughout his body and unusual calmness. He could not even imagine what exactly had happened and what consequences awaited him. He wondered what had happened. He had never felt such peace and strength before. His body seemed to glow from within. The Chosen One received a blessing, the first among equals, that increased his level, luck, and the number of points of each parameter. Even the guide being was surprised and did not understand how this happened. A sign appeared in front of the boy indicating his level, class, element, and skills. It looked like he was in some kind of game. The guide again offered him the elements to choose from, and she waited for an answer. But his attention was distracted by the sign. He could not remove it. It contained the following information about the Chosen One: name Svyatoslav, level 2, blessing first among equals, elements fire, water, air, earth, light, darkness, strength level 10, dexterity 8, intelligence 9, luck 6. Svyatoslav surprised the guide, so she decided to give him some useful advice. When he chooses an element, he will get a guardian who will tell him all the nuances and help him on his way in the battle of the gods. And the guide will give him information about the classes so that he can make the right and balanced choice. The warrior class is chosen by the brave and strong-minded. Warriors block most of the damage inflicted by the enemy. They have both offensive and defensive skills. Wizards are one of the most difficult classes. But at the same time, they have almost unlimited possibilities. They can use both attack and support skills, and are also able to control the enemy. And the most difficult class to implement is assassins. They eliminate the enemy with a single, deliberate blow. They are ideal for fighting against a single target. Svyatoslav was lucky enough to see the information about himself before he chose the element, and now he has to take advantage of it. He was sure that there was a mistake, because the elements offered earlier did not include light and darkness, and they were listed in his parameters. The guide said that he was just lucky to learn about 2 additional elements. Now he has to choose from what is offered. But he will not get anything for free. There are certain restrictions. And now it was time to choose. The boy is faced with 4 known elements, and 1 unknown element with a question mark. He decided to take a chance and chose an unknown element. A strange creature appeared from the ball, resembling a cute lizard. It was the guardian of the element of darkness and the black key. Svyatoslav was shocked by its appearance. The guide reminded him that he had 1 more question. He slowly shook off the glass and then asked what was the most important resource. The answer was a gold coin. The guide put the coin in the boy's hands and disappeared into thin air, as if she had never been there. He wondered what was so important about this gold coin. He decided to deal with this question later and put it in his pocket. Now he wondered what to do with his keeper. The boy decided to ask this strange creature what would happen next and what else was important to know. The guardian replied that Svyatoslav was chosen to participate in the battle of the gods, and he was his guardian, the elements being darkness. The creature will help the boy on his way. In the lands of the gods, the chosen one can be killed, but the guardian will resurrect him. With each new death, the time for resurrection will increase, but the feeling of pain when getting hit and wounded will not disappear. The guy can find all the information about himself in the hero's window. It can be called up at any time, just by thinking about it, and he suggested trying it right now. Svyatoslav did just that, thought about the window, and it immediately appeared in front of him, as if in a computer game. The next boy will have to choose a class, distribute the parameter points, and choose a location for the first test. If he understood correctly, the parameter points are strength, intelligence, and agility. He decided to distribute them first. How successful he will be in the battle is determined by how he distributes points between the parameters at the beginning. Surely the strength parameter affects physical damage. I wonder how much the attack will increase if you increase the strength by 1 point. He asked the guardian what the damage level would be and how he could check it. But the keeper replied with a sly smile that he did not understand the question. And then the boy realized that he was missing an important detail. He had no idea what exactly connected him and the guardian, what exactly his help would be, and how it was limited. If the keeper is helping him, then there must be something that connects them. The boy asked the guardian to show him what it was. The guardian smiled mysteriously and said that he was beginning to like the chosen one more and more. The guardian replied that they were bound by a soul contract. The guy read the contract carefully and said that he was not satisfied with some of the clauses and that he needed to change the terms. He knew that nothing in life comes for free. He needed maximum support and assistance and was willing to pay for it, so he asked what the custodian wanted for it and what were his terms. The situation was getting more and more interesting. The guardian agreed to give him full support on the condition that he fulfill his 3 wishes. Svyatoslav agreed. The guardian gave him a pen and told him to write in the contract what kind of support he needed. The text of the new contract consisted of the following points. 1. The chosen one and the keeper interact as partners in achieving the goals of the battle of the gods. The goals must become common. 2. The chosen one fulfills the 3 wishes of the guardian. 3. The experience and resources gained in the battle of the gods are divided in half. 4. The chosen one gives a name to the guardian. 5. The chosen one helps the guardian to reincarnate. 6. The guardian must share all the useful information and knowledge about the battle of the gods, help to master the element of darkness, and provide support in the development of skills. 7. The chosen one listens to the guardian's words and trusts him completely. 8. The guardian must resurrect the chosen one in case of death. They both agreed and signed the contract. Now the guardian was very interested in what name the boy would give him. The boy thought for a minute and said that Darka would be a perfect name for him, since his element is darkness. Darka liked his new name very much. The next step was to determine how strong the chosen one was. To do this, he had to hit the obelisk. Finally, it was time to show what he could do. The boy hit the obelisk with his fist with all his might, but the expression on the guardian's face made it clear that he was not satisfied with the result. The obelisk showed a punching force of 14. Darka advised him to increase his strength by 1 point and see what the result would be. Svyatoslav added 1 point and immediately felt a surge of strength. He tried to hit the obelisk again, and this time his strength was 26. This result was much better. The guy didn't understand how to use the skill yet, so he decided to divide the parameter points between strength and agility. His intuition was that they would give him a bigger advantage in the beginning. After distributing the points, he hit the obelisk again for the final test, and the result was much better, 81 points. All that was left was to choose a class. Darka recommended choosing the assassin class. This class would help maximize his element of darkness and give him a huge advantage. The guy trusted the guardian and chose the assassin, although he had originally planned to take the wizard. When he clicked the assassin icon on the window, 2 blades automatically appeared in his hands. In addition, a window with an inventory appeared in front of the chosen one, where you can choose weapons and more. The last thing left to do is to choose a location for the test, after which the adventures of the Chosen One and the Guardian will begin. Svyatoslav rolled the dice that Darka handed him, and now it will become clear whether luck is on his side. The dice fell to the floor and showed the number 6, and the choice was made. Darka said that he would find out all the details on the spot, and he began preparing to move. A dark glow radiated from the Guardian's hands. At first it was slight, but then it completely enveloped them both. Darka settled comfortably on the boy's shoulders and teleported them to the place of the upcoming test. The Chosen One and the Keeper arrived at the first test, and the place turned out to be very picturesque and beautiful. A window with full information about the quest immediately popped up in front of them. On the first test, the Chosen One had to survive as long as possible. The test will end after the first death, and then the Chosen One will be sent to the next stage. The prizes will be determined depending on the life expectancy of the Chosen One, and will be awarded at the end of the challenge. Darkus sensed the danger, and suggested that they move away from the water. They needed to find shade. Before they could take a couple of steps, a leopard suddenly jumped out of the forest. Shocked and surprised, they froze in place and watched the animal in silence. Fortunately, they were not the target, but a crocodile in the pond. While the leopard was finishing off its prey and dragging it to shore, they managed to hide behind a tree. Darka was right, it was really dangerous here. The Guardian decided to move them to a safe place and began to teleport them. They found themselves in a strange room. Darka promised to tell them more about this place later, but now the main thing is that it's safe. They have many tasks that need to be solved first. To begin with, Svyatoslav needs to learn how to feel the darkness and use it in his skills. When he learns to feel it, he will learn how to transform it into any shape he wants. In the right hands, it can become a formidable weapon. Darka told Svyatoslav what skills he could use when he mastered the darkness. Night vision. This skill allows you to see at night, as clearly as during the day. Shadow blades. This skill allows you to ignore defenses and deal increased damage. Shadow portal. This skill allows you to move to a safe place in the shadows. Ghost flight. This skill allows you to move in the shadows over medium distances. The first time it was hard to feel the elements, especially the darkness, but still, the boy had to try. Darka watched Svyatoslav's attempt closely and hoped to have some fun. The Guardian advised him to imagine the darkness in the form of a black sphere. The boy closed his eyes and clearly imagined that he was holding the sphere of darkness in his hands. Svyatoslav's body was enveloped in a dark glow, and Darka was shocked that he almost succeeded the first time. The guy didn't feel anything. He was upset that he didn't manage to feel the darkness completely the first time. But Darka reassured him and said that he did well, he expected less. The true black-hearted god was surprised when he felt that one of the chosen ones began to recognize the darkness at the stage of the first test. He decided to send a small gift to this talent. Svyatoslav saw a new message in the window, from someone named Blackheart. Some kind of development book appeared in his inventory, and he asked Darky what it was. The Guardian greeted him and explained that with this book he would become stronger every second. He needed to open the development book and just start reading it. The Chosen One felt a powerful force coming from the development book. He could not understand the symbols, but he did not need to, because knowledge and images poured into his mind as he began to read the book. Suddenly the book disappeared from his hands. Darka explained that to see where the book had disappeared, he needed to open the hero's window. Some data was updated in the window: Level 3 Development Book, Class Assassin, Element Darkness, Strength 15, Dexterity 12, Intelligence 9, Luck 4. As long as the development book is with him, Svyatoslav will always gain experience. The amount of experience gained depends on the book. Now the keeper needs to explain to the boy how the skills were used and what to look for in the first test. The most difficult part of the Battle of the Gods is finding skills, using them during the battle, and creating new ones. Each chosen one has a guardian who belongs to one of the basic elements: fire, water, air, earth. But Svyatoslav is lucky, he has a guardian of the highest element, darkness. Soon he will be able to use the initial skills of the element of darkness that Darka showed him. They signed a contract according to which the Guardian will also gain experience along with the Chosen One. Though this will reduce the boy's leveling speed, it should pay off in the future. After that, Svyatoslav will be able to use very powerful skills. The guy was surprised to hear the last part. He doesn't feel the darkness yet, and the Guardian wants to take half of his experience and resources. Not a very good start to the adventure. Darka decided to include the wise man, who said that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Svyatoslav asked where to start. What is the first step in mastering the skill? If a guy has practiced martial arts before, he can try to perform some techniques. This will become the basis of the future skill. And if he hasn't, then you need to remember how athletes strike in competitions or actors in movies. The boy should try to strike the obelisk. Svyatoslav threw a punch at the obelisk. After he did so, he received a notification that he had received the cross skill. He remembered that a similar punch in boxing is called a cross. This means that someone has already used this particular fist punch and has already come up with a name, because the creator of the new skill gives it a name. Now, if he adds the element of darkness to the punch, he will get a new skill and can name it whatever he wants. These are almost unlimited possibilities, and the more often he uses the skill, the more powerful it will become. Svyatoslav understood everything well and absorbed the information perfectly. Darka added that in addition to creating new skills, he could find books that described the skills of other chosen ones or gods. When the first test is passed, the keeper will tell you more about where you can get the skill. Darka asked if Svyatoslav had any experience of survival in the wild. But Svyatoslav had never even been camping, so he had no such experience. He only recalled watching TV programs about survival in the wild, so he had a minimal idea. Darky asked the boy to name the sequence of his actions in such a situation. First, you need to find fresh water, then think about food. Although this is more difficult, Svyatoslav did not understand what to eat in the jungle. It is also very important to find a shelter for the night and protection from wild animals. Darka promised to help with the shelter, but the boy had to focus on exploring the area and developing his skills, which was important to him. Svyatoslav was ready to go, but the keeper had to scout the situation first. As soon as they got out, the first thing they would do was look for water. Darka checked everything. The path was clear, so they set off. They were surrounded by dense jungle on all sides, and it was a bad idea to enter it, so they decided to look for another place to see the area. A good option was a high cliff with a waterfall, from which you could definitely see the whole area. So it was decided to go there. While they were climbing the cliff, Svyatoslav decided to ask Darka questions that he had been saving up. A development book appeared in the hero's window, and it gives experience that depends on time. The guy has almost reached level 4. Did he understand correctly that he can just wait to gain experience here? And how many levels are there? The leveling system here is much more complicated than just levels. There are domains, development stages, and levels. Darka told us about each of them in more detail. There are 7 domains in total: divine, mythical, legendary, epic, elite, advanced, and initial. Each realm is divided into 7 stages of development: celestial, lower celestial, upper cloud, cloudy, lower cloud, upper earth, and earthy. And at each stage of development there are levels, as you mentioned earlier. Svyatoslav suggested that if experience comes with time, then everything seems quite simple. Darka emphasized that the key word is seemingly. At each stage of development, you have to fulfill certain conditions to move to the next one. And until you fulfill them, you won't be able to get to a higher level. The young man asked how exactly to find out these conditions for moving to the next stage of development. Svyatoslav will receive the first stage, the upper terrestrial one, when the time comes. Only then will he be able to move to the lower cloud level. The conditions for moving to the next stage of development depend on the class he has chosen. If Svyatoslav understood correctly, the pumping takes time and certain conditions need to be met. So the main focus is on the effectiveness of decisions and actions taken? Darka corrected him a bit. The main focus is still more on how efficiently he spends time to achieve the goal. You can compare it to a marathon, when everyone wants to be the first to run and be closer to the finish line. The catch is that to solve a problem, you need to be one level above the problem. The guy didn't understand, but asked him to explain it again. Darka tried to explain with a simple example. Suppose Sviatoslav is a driver and he has 1 hour to visit 3 points A, B, and C. He decides which route to take, A, B, 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 A, and maybe he even has extra time. But if they don't see the whole picture, they will miss great opportunities. For example, in their case, to become stronger and visit a bunch of other places that they didn't know about for some reason. Sviatoslav wondered how Darkin knew about marathons and cars. He answered that every guardian has access to the memory of the chosen one and takes knowledge from there. Darky also had many questions for the boy. He did not understand everything about man and his nature. Sviatoslav hoped that he would be able to answer all the questions. In the meantime, they unnoticed the waterfall. The water turned out to be very tasty. The boy had never thought that a dream could be so vivid, believable, and long. He still did not believe it. That all this was really happening. Darka was surprised when he heard the boy's version of the dream and decided to prove to him that it was all happening to him. The guardian used an old and proven method, scratching him to make him feel pain. There is nothing more real than pain. Bloody claw marks appeared on the chosen one's arm. The pain managed to convince Sviatoslav that it was not a dream. The guardian gave him a medicinal plant to help his wound heal faster. Now the boy had a lot to think about, so he decided to gather his thoughts and meditate. In his mind, the chosen one erases all boundaries of what is permissible in meditation. This is his world and his rules. Any information in the imagination of the chosen one is a sphere, whether it is a question to which an answer needs to be found or some useful clue. Everything is subject to his will. Sviatoslav adored difficult tasks, and solving them only made him stronger. He decided to start by finding the important information and then sorting it. After discarding the junk, he was left with only the most important information. This is what he was going to work with. The guy sorted the information into categories, and put everything related to the elements in a separate section. It is much more pleasant to work with structured information. While he was organizing his information, Darka appeared out of nowhere. Sviatoslav could not understand how the guardian managed to get into his mind. Darka replied that where he was chosen, his guardian went. The guy was not satisfied with this answer. He snapped his fingers and made Darka disappear. The guardian finally disappeared but reappeared a second later. He was irritated and tried to understand how the boy managed to pull off such a trick and make him disappear. And Sviatoslav, in turn, tried to understand how the guardian could get into his imagination. He himself had gone through a difficult journey to learn how to control his own imagination. It was the first time he had ever experienced something happening here against his will. We need to figure out exactly how this happened. Darky wondered how Sviatoslav had learned to control his imagination. He agreed to answer only one question, as there was no time, and he had a lot of information to sort through in his head. Sviatoslav explained that as a child he considered himself a calm child, but then he realized that he was very sensitive and anxious. He had to do something about it, so he started meditating a lot. Many people think it's easy, but in practice it's much more complicated. First, you need to completely relax your body muscles. Then the task becomes more complicated. You have to learn to control your thoughts. Sviatoslav could not even imagine not thinking about anything. It was really so difficult. He began to imagine himself in a black sphere where there is nothing, only darkness. This helped him start to control his thoughts. And then he started a real battle with himself. He began to imagine specific images and learned to call them up. After 7 years of hard training, there was not a single image left that he could not summon or modify at will. Since then, he has been able to control thoughts and space in his imagination. After he had satisfied Darka's curiosity and answered his questions, the boy continued to work with the information in his own head. The guardian politely promised not to interfere. Darky began to get bored as he waited for Svyatoslav to sort and analyze the information he had accumulated. He turned from side to side, laid down, sat, played with imagination balls, and impatiently asked the boy when he would finally finish. Finally, after a while, Svyatoslav shook his hands and said that he had figured it out. The guardian asked what exactly he had come up with after a long analysis and sorting. First, Svyatoslav needed to find out who the gods were, and why they were holding a battle of the gods. He didn't want to be a puppet in someone else's hands. Secondly, the boy is looking forward to reaching a high level to find out what he is capable of. He has always dreamed of finding out what it would be like to be Superman. Thirdly, we need to understand how to create the new skills Darky talked about. And finally, where and how to get important information and how big this world is. But the most important thing for Svyatoslav was that he would finally be able to make his secret fantasies come true. Darky was frankly shocked by the boy's confession. The chosen one meditated until the evening and came up with a fantastic idea. It was getting dark, and soon it would be time to go to bed. He hoped that his assumption would be correct. It was nice to realize that the levels were rising while you were doing nothing. Svyatoslav was already at level 4, but apparently there is a limit to everything. Darky was already sleepy, as for the first day, there were more than enough events. The guy agreed with the keeper. It had been a busy day, but he had a few more things to do before he went to bed. First of all, he had to distribute the parameter points. And the second thing concerned Darky himself, or more precisely, his uniqueness. The guardian was intrigued, and he asked Svyatoslav how he could help him. He decided to explain to Darky the nature of human sleep. Sleep goes through several stages, from falling asleep, through slow-wave sleep to REM sleep. It is the latter that we are interested in, as dreams at this time are vivid and well remembered. The body needs slow-wave sleep to regain strength. And during REM sleep, the heart rate accelerates, blood rushes to the brain, breathing becomes more frequent, and hormones are released as if the body is under stress. This stage is also called paradoxical sleep. Svyatoslav's theory about Darky is based on his uniqueness and the ability to enter the boy's mind when he meditates. The sleep is cyclical, and every hour and a half Darky will have up to 20 minutes of paradoxical sleep when he can enter Svyatoslav's consciousness. The boy will remember everything that will happen, and if he is trained during this time, he will become stronger faster. And the most important point is related to a person's perception of the world around him. Darky was confused. He did not understand what the guy was talking about. People receive information about the world around them through their senses: hearing, sight, smell, touch, and taste. However, it is not always possible for a person to immediately understand what is real and what is not. If we summarize everything Svyatoslav said, it turns out that Darky will be able to train him in his sleep, and during the day it will be like a real training session. It sounded interesting enough, but the guardian wasn't sure if it would work. The boy was not entirely sure that they would succeed either, but he wanted to take a chance and try, and he counted on Darky's help. The guardian suggested that this experiment be conducted in a safe place, a shadow portal. Svyatoslav noticed that Darky was acting suspiciously. He was too excited. Darky replied that he just wanted to try out the boy's idea in practice as soon as possible. He touched his temple and made him fall asleep. The boy was instantly enveloped in shadowy clouds and plunged into sleep. The guardian smiled suspiciously and gloatingly. Svyatoslav was in his own dream, and they succeeded. Darky was there too, making some adjustments, slowing down time, and removing the death counter. Now everything was ready. The guardian suggested that we start training with the basics. The first task was to destroy the fat man created by Darky. Svyatoslav took on the task with ease and confidence. He did not doubt himself. But it didn't go as planned. He spent a lot of time, got exhausted, and broke his arms, but he still couldn't defeat the enemy. Svyatoslav wondered what this strange thing was made of, and no matter how much he beat it, it did not work. Darky came up, smiled, called the boy a weakling, and with one touch of the strange creature created a crack in it. A second later, it broke in half. The training continued, and the boy beat the fat man with all his might, but he could not destroy him. The poor chosen one was desperate, he could no longer feel his arms. Darka was amazed at Svyatoslav's resilience, he expected him to give up much earlier. The chosen one was strong in spirit, and everything else can be trained. Darka said that the training was enough for the first time. Now he just needed to get his training fee. Svyatoslav was surprised, as there had been no talk of any fee before. The guardian just smiled and sharpened his claws. The chosen one woke up in horror, dreaming that Darka had killed him in his dream. The guardian just smiled and said that it was not a dream at all, he had really killed him. Svyatoslav's death in a dream was also part of the training. The boy did not like this answer at all. Darka considered such methods quite justified, because the result was there. He invited the boy to look through the hero's window. Svyatoslav opened the window and saw a detailed description and characteristics of the cross skill. In the skill description, there was information about the critical hit chance, and the boy asked Darka how it was calculated and what exactly it depended on. The chance of a critical hit depends on many parameters. For example, the chosen class, skill level, blessings, and others. The more often the chosen one uses the skill, the greater the skill level and the more frequent the critical hits will be. But the damage from a critical hit depends only on luck. Svyatoslav's luck level is 4, which means 400% damage. This was great news for the guy, but they have a lot to do today, so they have to go. First, he decided to climb a mountain to look around the area. Next, we need to find food, the guy would not want to die of hunger. It would also be good to warm up before getting up. It is necessary to make the body realize that the sleep stage is over and it is necessary to stay awake. This is what all animals do when they wake up. If you don't warm up and warm up your muscles, you will get tired quickly while climbing and will hardly be ready for the possible dangers that may be waiting there. Now he was ready. Svyatoslav asked Darky what he thought was important in such a climb. The guardian answered without hesitation that the most important thing was the ability to fly. And with a sly laugh, he spread his wings. In fact, one of the most important conditions for lifting is the correct distribution of the load on the limbs. The main load should be transferred to the legs and pushed off with them. Svyatoslav was climbing up, and Darka was holding on to him tightly and encouraging him to climb faster. The high cliff did not end, the guy kept climbing up. Finally, his hand touched a flat vertical surface, and he was almost at the top. Tired, Svyatoslav pulled up his heavy body and climbed to the top of the rock. If Darka hadn't been hanging around his neck the whole time, it would have taken him much less time. While the boy was resting and gathering his strength, the guardian asked what they would do next. The chosen one looked dreamily and smilingly at the sunrise, thinking how good it was that they had managed to get up just in time for this moment. Morning meditation is a great way to start the day. Darka tried to shout to the boy, but he had already plunged into the endless expanse of his own consciousness. The guardian was even offended that the boy ignored him. While the boy was meditating, Darka didn't know what to do with himself, and even started catching butterflies out of boredom. Svyatoslav opened his eyes, the meditation was over, and the day was almost over. He stretched out contentedly. He had relaxed and had a good rest during the meditation. Wondering where his guardian had disappeared, he looked around and called Darky. The guardian appeared immediately, saying that he had been waiting and had just managed to prepare everything. Svyatoslav was surprised at what kind of preparation he was talking about. Darka flew up and rushed at the boy at full speed. The chosen one received a light blow to the very center of his forehead. Instantly his consciousness blacked out, and he began to fall into the vast sea of foggy darkness. Svyatoslav found himself back in his own subconscious, with an unbearable headache. He asked Darka to stop bringing him here without warning. But the guardian did not accept complaints. It was time for the next training session. The strange fat man stood in front of the boy again. Today Sviatoslav was going to destroy him. Darka warned him about a small nuance. Unlike last time, today the fat man would hit back. So the task became more complicated. The Guardian was ready to watch a very interesting fight. This was not what Sviatoslav had expected, and the fat man beat him mercilessly, throwing him from side to side. Darka even opened a death counter. The Guardian revived the boy again and again after each death, and his goal today was to destroy the fat man. This thing is big and clumsy, so the Chosen One tried to attack from the back but failed again. The fat man took his head off. Sviatoslav was reborn once again, and he learned his lesson. There is no point in attacking from the back, relying on the clumsiness of the enemy. The keeper gave a little hint, saying that the best form of defense is offense. The guy had only a cross, so he decided to try to attack with it. Sviatoslav's fist collided with the fist of the thing, and then the Chosen One's bones crunched. His broken arm hurt unbearably, and he wondered why the fat man hadn't finished him off. Before Sviatoslav could finish this thought, his head was once again separated from his body. Darka's death counter was already at 3. He really enjoyed watching this spectacle. It was much more interesting than just waiting for him to meditate. Sviatoslav continued to die. The fat man mercilessly inflicted fatal blows. He pierced his chest, fractured his skull, and broke his spine. The number of deaths on the counter was growing, but there was no progress toward the goal. The guy was thinking about what information he had already learned during this time. The fat man's kill zone is a sphere with a radius equal to the length of an arm. It is difficult to attack from the back, as he can instantly strike in this area, in any direction. The time between attacks is exactly 2 seconds. The attacks themselves do a lot of damage, and there is no point in trying to block them. It hits vital organs to kill in one blow. Sviatoslav decided to try a different tactic. Gaining great speed, he ran at the fat man. He had 2 seconds to attack, and managed to dodge the first blow. Darka was surprised and interested in the guy's new tactics. Finally, Sviatoslav had a real chance to strike back. But his hopes were not realized this time, as the fat man broke his ribs again. It seemed that this creature was irresistible, and the training turned into a real nightmare. The fat man's fist was approaching Sviatoslav once again to take his head off. A moment before he died, the guy promised himself to destroy the thing, no matter what. Darka's counter showed the number 11. These workouts were just a hell of a level of difficulty. It's not easy to get used to. Darka said that this is just the beginning. Soon the guy will get into it, and everything will be great. He himself was curious about what they would end up with, as no one had ever trained like this before. Sviatoslav opened the hero's window to check what skills he had learned during the training. Dodge skill added. The Chosen One gets a chance to avoid damage from a physical attack or a lethal attack, replacing it with a non-lethal one. Damage reduction skill. The Chosen One receives less damage from physical attacks inflicted by piercing, cutting, crushing weapons or skills. Next, melee. The skill allows you to effectively engage in fisticuffs, dealing more damage. Increases the chance of stunning the enemy. Lastly, pain threshold. A skill that gives the Chosen One the ability to endure severe pain without losing the body's performance. The effects of enemy control are lost faster. Despite all the skills he has learned, the last training session was more like a beating. Of the 2 skills he has acquired, evasion and damage reduction, Sviatoslav has to choose which one to focus on in his training. Most likely, he will focus on dodging, which will give him a greater advantage in battles. The guy suggested that Darka should focus his training efforts on improving his evasion skills. He also had a question about the damage reduction skill. Does it depend on the type of weapon, piercing, cutting or crushing, for example? As for the dodging skill, Darka had no problem promising to put more emphasis on it. As for the types of physical damage, Sviatoslav was right. There are different types: stabbing, cutting, crushing. The guy, as an assassin, will have to master cutting and piercing weapons, but this is in the future. To Darka's surprise, the Chosen One began to meditate again on the morning of the 3rd day of the first test. The guardian was upset. He would have to wait for him alone and bored all day again. The day was coming to an end, and the chosen one was still meditating. Darka was waiting for his moment. Svyatoslav finally opened his eyes, and the keeper immediately asked him if he was ready for the next training session. He was ready, but first he wanted to distribute the parameter points. When he was done with the distribution, the training continued. The chosen one felt that today he could win. The guardian had already heard him say this before, so he advised him not to rush and introduced him to his new friends. He saw a mantis on wheels and an octopus with insect eyes. Darka clearly had an unhealthy imagination. The guardian suggested starting with a warm-up, as Svyatoslav had asked earlier, and his task was to dodge. The octopus stood in front of him, raised 2 tentacles and suddenly released sharp stingers. As it turned out, he could shoot them, and the stingers flew straight at the chosen one and pierced him through. The death counter was started again. Darka asked me to remember that if a guy doesn't attack, he is being attacked. Svyatoslav wanted to try a frontal attack to find out their attacking habits and possibly their weaknesses. Another attempt to attack began. The octopus shot its stingers again, but this time the boy noticed them in advance and was able to dodge them. The next to attack was a mantis and cut Svyatoslav into 2 pieces with its sharp blade paws. The number 13 was on the death meter. Svyatoslav revived and immediately began to analyze what he had learned about the enemy during the first attack. The octopus attacks from a distance, but the range of its attack is still unknown. It attacked with only 2 stingers at a time, and I wonder if it can shoot them all at once. The mantis attacks in a straight line, but at a very high speed. The area of damage is the length of the arms. If you put all the information together, it turns out that it's even harder for him to get to the fat guy. He has to come up with a new attack, so he calculates his every move in his head and starts implementing the plan. He successfully avoided the mantis and dodged the sting of the octopus. Now he had to overcome the main enemy. The fat man was looking forward to the fight. When he was only a few steps away from the fat man, Darka snapped his fingers and out of the floor, the octopus's tentacles came out and grabbed Svyatoslav's hands. Now he could not move, let alone attack. The boy had no idea he had such a skill. While the octopus was holding it, a mantis came from the other side and cut it into pieces. They worked as a team. These creatures were openly mocking him, laughing and rejoicing in their victory. The death counter showed the number 14. When Svyatoslav woke up, a new message was waiting for him in the hero window. The message said that he had gained new skills after another training session. Combat Tactics. This skill allows you to effectively plan a battle with several opponents. Take into account possible attacks and maneuvers of the enemy, as well as the environment. Acrobatics. A skill of body control. It allows you to keep better balance, not lose coordination of movements, increase flexibility, strength, and agility. It was sunrise on the 3rd day of the first test. It was a perfect morning to do something really crazy, something Svyatoslav hadn't had the courage to do before. He decided to jump off a cliff into the water, and the main thing was not to stop at the last moment because of fear. Darka watched this eccentric in shock. After picking up speed, he jumped up and flew down. It was a very unusual feeling. When he meditated, he came to the conclusion that in order to become stronger, he needed to understand how to use the elements in his skills. The most common element is air, so he decided to start with it. Svyatoslav wondered how he could tame the air. It can be soft as a pillow and light as a feather. Or it can be harsh and ruthless, demolishing everything in its path, and then it is feared. Is it possible to learn to control this force? How exactly can it conquer the air? Surely there is a secret that he does not understand. 566,567, and then it hit him. Air, freedom, flight, birds. In addition to conquering, you can also cooperate. A bird flies in the air not to conquer it, but to use it. He has to do the same. The boy needs wings and then he can fly. As soon as Svyatoslav realized this, wings grew behind him. But at this speed he will break even with wings. Something else needs to be invented to slow down the fall. That's right. There was a waterfall nearby. Water is similar to air in many ways, and Svyatoslav was sure that he would be able to create some kind of skill. The only question was, what exactly should he invent? Slides would be the best option. He managed to stop the fall. But most importantly, he realized how to use the elements of air and water. The guy recalled his childhood and how pleasant and fun it was to ride the slides. It is a heady feeling of strength and freedom. I wonder what other skills he will be able to create and use. 6 months have passed since the battle began. Arena. The coordinates are unknown. The jester's foot stepped into a beam of light in the arena. Level, true god. Name, jester. He greeted the audience and asked if they were ready to fight. The arena will feature a crowd favorite, the destroyer boar, a champion with 5 victories. Next, the jester introduced his rival, the newcomer to the arena, the fox ghost. The jester invited the audience to place bets and offer challenges to the participants. The boar chose the challenge in the window that appeared in front of him. Then, the jester announced that the champion had made his choice. The boar incited and threatened his opponent, preparing for the battle. He was determined to win quickly. Meanwhile, the fox was looking thoughtfully at the call selection window. The jester mockingly asked what was the delay, if perhaps the challenges were too difficult for him. The ghost, on the other hand, asked if there was something harder, as he thought the challenges were too weak. The jester asked the audience who was ready to offer the newcomer a more difficult challenge. Level, a true god. Name, Blackheart. Coordinates, unknown. Blackheart sent the newcomer a challenge. He wanted to watch a real show. The challenge was that it was forbidden to counterattack the opponent during his first 100 attacks. The reward, 500 gold pieces. Level, a true god. Name, unknown. Coordinates, unknown. Another summons was sent to the fox. The chosen one can only use attacks and skills of the air element. Reward, 100 gold pieces. But the fox was not satisfied, he wanted more, his eyes were burning. The jester also decided to add a challenge, he wanted to see what the newcomer could do. The chosen one cannot use any weapon during the battle. Reward, 100 gold. The ghost fox confidently confirmed that he would accept all the challenges offered. The jester was very excited, they were going to have an incredible battle. Then his face changed and he added that it could also be a complete disappointment. The boar, the destroyer, gave a battle cry, the fox, the ghost, also looked at his opponent with a challenge, and the jester started the battle. First of all, the fox decided to choose a battle tactic. Given the limitations of the challenges, this is more of a battle of wits than of muscles. He will try to provoke the boar so that it has no chance to think about the course of the battle. The boar has thick skin and a layer of fat that protects it well. Therefore, you should think about how to finish it off. For its size, it is quite fast, and its armor and axes give it additional advantages. The fox began to provoke the boar. He said that he would not even need daggers to win. The fox dropped his daggers and let the boar make the first 10 attacks. The boar was sure that the fox would regret his frivolous decision. The destroyer launched a frontal attack, his axes blazing with fire. He had trained the skill powerful destroyer attack. The boar's impatience was to the fox's advantage, and the training had paid off. The boar's attacks seemed simple and easy to dodge. There were 99 attacks left. The boar began preparing the destroyer's will skill for its next attack. He expected to end this fight quickly. But the fox managed to avoid this attack as well. He even got bored of dodging such predictable moves. There were 98 attacks left. The boar gradually began to realize that his opponent was quite fast. But he did not give up and tried a double attack, preparing the double strike of the destroyer's skill. The fox dodged it anyway, but now it became much more interesting, and the fox realized that the boar was probably not considered the champion of the arena for nothing. There are 97 attacks left. The boar was seriously angry and began to prepare the whirlwind of rage skill. He wondered if the fox would be able to dodge now. The fox didn't expect the boar to attack like that, and now he was starting to worry. There are 86 attacks left. The fox managed to avoid the boar's attack only by using the acrobatics skill. You need to stay away from it, it is becoming very dangerous. The boar has begun training for the unique Berserker Rage skill. There are 76 attacks left. Then the boar tried to attack with the skill Heavenly Fury of the Destroyer. The fox was able to dodge again, but each time it became more and more difficult. The boar's attacks were even becoming interesting to the fox. There were 74 attacks left. The jester demanded a bigger show. The boar was tired of the fox constantly dodging, so he decided to limit his ability to move. Preparing the skill Earthquake Destroyer. The boar kicked with all his might and the ground was vibrating and cracking. While the boar was stomping its hoof fiercely, creating an earthquake, the fox disappeared from his sight. Suddenly, a smiling black shadow appeared behind the destroyer. The jester snapped his fingers, appeared in the middle of the battlefield, and whispered something mysteriously into the fox's ear. The fox didn't even fully realize what had happened. Had someone just whispered in his ear? It turns out that the jester stopped time and asked the fox to add a little more tension to the battle so that he and his siblings could enjoy it, because the battle was very boring at the moment. The fox realized how powerful the jester was, that he could even stop time. Should he show them what he could do now? But he decided to put on a great show for his generous sponsors. While the fox suddenly froze, the boar decided to take the opportunity to finish him off. But the fox had time to prepare the unique skill of the Eye of Eternity. Without this unique skill, it is unlikely that the fox would have been able to dodge these attacks so easily, without fear of being killed. The Eye of Eternity is a very useful skill, even cunning. There are 72 attacks left.